Hey everybody, I'm back. So, as you can tell from the title of the video, today we are finally getting around to the review of You Are Not Broken by Dr. Rhoda Lipscomb. And I finally finished at least as much as I needed to read from this. We'll get to that. Today, I went back and, started rereading again yesterday and just kind of, it was like all on assault, like I'm going to finish this book so I can do this review. And so here we go. So on Amazon, $24.97, so $25. Not very much, less than a pack of diapers, and way more useful. As much as we all love our diapers, and you know me, love my diapers. Less than a pack of diapers, and just so much more. Like, what good is the diapers and the onesies and everything else if you don't feel good about yourself? If you are still in a place where society tells you you shouldn't feel good about yourself and that you should in fact hate yourself because of this. And that's, I think, what a lot of us actually end up dealing with. And I know for myself that as a cisgender hetero male, that's exactly the message I was getting, was like, no, you should hate yourself for that. Not just we hate you, but you should hate you too. And that's sadly a lot of the message that comes through. Some of that's our own perception and some of that's not. And with that, let's get into talking about this. So first, there's a wonderful intro, where Dr. Rhoda, lets you know that, like, look, I'm not an ABDL. I don't consider myself necessarily an expert on the ABDL experience. And she gives a list of people that, she feels like are experts. And, there's, of course, Penny Barber, who I have her the Age Play and Diaper Fetish Handbook, which I don't think I've done a review on this one. I'm not sure. Maybe I did. I don't know. But she mentions Penny Barber, who's been a long-standing member of the community. And Bitter Gray, for those of you who don't know, was involved in the ABDL survey project, if I'm remembering that right. Let me see if I can flip to the resources here real quick. Sorry, not a section I was thinking of. I think that Bitter Gray was involved with A-Disc or Understanding Infantilism, one of those two. I can't remember which, but he was kind of like the first person to really, create a survey and actually get the thoughts from the ABDLs themselves, rather than it being kind of more of a like individual clinician making an assessment, that kind of clinical research thing, like more like, hey, let's actually go to these people and talk to them and see what they have to say. So, and then the other name that she mentions, and she actually mentions this book in her resources, and it's kind of become controversial with Riley Keough calling them out, but she does mention Rosalie Bent as an expert, and actually mentions this book in the resources in the back, the same as the Penny Barber book. Now, I don't know if Dr. Rhoda is aware of the accusations or any of that other stuff. I haven't spoken with her, which I have spoken with her in person a couple of times at CapCon. But I don't like know her like on that level to where I could be like, hey, do you know about this? And are you sure you want to be, and honestly, I don't know personally the validity of the accusations against Rosalie, so I cannot really comment on that. I'm putting it in your hands that, look, I read this book and said, yeah, the things in this book are valid, and Dr. Rhoda is saying, yes, that the stuff that's in this book is valid. It's up to you to look at the situation and decide whether or not you want to give that person money, if it's worth it to you to have that book and have that resource. That's up to you. A little Cuddy Sark. I'm trying to chill this weekend. I've been just being little. I've been wearing all weekend. Got my pacifier sitting on my coffee table. I've been, coffee in the morning, water in the afternoon, scotch in the evening. Sorry to break the little thing going on there. So that all being said, I need to move this whole along. And then she kind of dives into, her credentials, which are very impressive, from her bachelor's and master's to her doctorate, which are all, I've sat through her classes at CapCon pretty much every year that she's been there, that I've been there. She kind of, gives you a little backstory on how she basically became known as the diaper doctor, because that's, I can't remember if she mentions that specifically in the book, like that's kind of like her nickname, but that is her nickname, is the diaper doctor. And the rest of the intro is kind of more like an outline or a synopsis of what the rest of the book is going to be. She's like, okay, so here's the deal. This is what, we're getting down to. Here's the work ahead of you, and it's worth reading if you're not really familiar with her. Like, if you've never gone to CapCon or any of the other cons that she's been to and sat through her workshops, her classes, then, and you really don't know who she is, you just know of her from everybody else in the community talking about her, then that intro is a good thing to read. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Let's get down to business. So chapters 1 through 4, it starts with, basically, what ABDL is and isn't, and her kind of giving an overview of what she's come to know about it through her, clinical work and things like that. And, basically, it's like, hey, this, and, this is actually not all that uncommon. It's not like exactly a common thing, but it's not as uncommon as what most people think, especially people that are just realizing this about themselves, or finally giving into it and like, I can't make this feeling go away. It's like, yeah, yeah, that's the same thing everybody goes through. And then chapter 2, you know, one of the other things about this is these chapters are fairly short and easy to digest. Chapter 1 is one of the longer chapters, and it's 20 pages. So 20 pages, that's not that heavy duty of reading. The overall book, I think, is like 242 pages. So it's not like an overwhelming read as far as volume. Chapter 2, 18 pages, and she talks about what research exists, which is actually a lot more than what most people realize, especially, like ABDLs, we feel like because of, what gets reflected to us in mass media and so, society, that it's like, okay, nobody out there has looked at this and nobody understands this. That's actually not true at all. This has been being studied for a very, very long time, and the concept of ABDL or infantilism or whatever different, names and stuff that it's categories that it's fallen under throughout history. This has actually been being studied for a long time, and there's one of the specific classes at CapCon taught by a specific person that I actually had to go back and edit one of my videos because I dropped his name in there, and I was like, I thought about it, I was like, oh no, I gotta cut that out. I can't do that, so I had to go back and cut his name out. But if you go to CapCon, there's a very specific class, and if you want to message me somewhere kind of private so that I can tell you which class that is and not publicly put his name out, that I will do that. But yeah, there's a lot more research than what people think, and it's worth your time knowing that and reading this chapter. It's wonderful. Chapter 3 is about the ingrained beliefs that we have, how we were socialized, social conditioning, and that's the kind of thing where I was talking about, where what society and mass media, what little we get mentioned and what we get talked about, how society reflects us back to us, and we just sit there shaking our head going, no, you don't understand, you really don't get it, but at the same time, especially for somebody that's, still struggling with self-acceptance, and hasn't gotten to that place yet, this is a very, kind of emotionally dangerous place to be in. Emotionally dangerous place to be in, because and especially for hetero males, for anyone in general, but especially hetero males, because this is so not masculine, and we'll get to that here in a minute, but this so flies in the face of convention that the world around us is like, there is something wrong with you, and and we hear it all the time, and I've told the story before about the guy that I worked with and what he said. But yeah, and that's one of her points in that chapter is like, look, are you really feeling this? Or is society telling you you should feel this, and maybe they're wrong? And it really, really comes through, and it's, it's a great chapter, and really it's only 12 pages. So once again, it's not really heavy duty writing. It's not heavy reading. It's not full of a bunch of like psycho jargon, or psychology jargon. and stuff like that. It's easy to read, plain and simple English. So it's a very good. And then chapter 4, what I said we were getting to, is a look at masculinity. Now this impressed me very much. This coming from her and knowing a little bit about her and having, attended her classes and watched some of her interviews and listened to some of her podcast interviews and stuff like that, and understanding what, her practice is and what motivated her to get into it and all these things. This was amazing. Her like recognition about like toxic masculinity and how males, tear themselves down psychologically over with this toxic masculinity that is imposed upon us. And the fact that she even kind of recognizes that there are a lot of females out there that are just as guilty for pushing toxic masculinity. And believe me, where I live, I can show it to you if you want. If you don't believe me, I can show it to you on online dating apps. Yes, I'm sorry, but especially in rural areas like where I live, women are just as guilty for reinforcing toxic masculinity as the men, So, but yeah, this is if you're a male AB and you're struggling with that, like that social conditioning that you're not a man, you're not a real man because you have this vulnerable little side, this chapter is for you. And believe me, it is worth it. I still had kind of like tinges of that, and especially going through my last divorce where my ex-wife's boyfriend said to me in a online back and forth that she's with a real man now, and I knew that she had used that as part of her reasoning for convincing him to go along with her cheating on me, getting into that relationship with her. And she's a toxic liar, so I forget it. But that's just a real life example where it's like she's with a real man now. It's like okay, yep, I see where yep. Sorry, hate to assume, but that's like obvious. So moving on.